I just wanted to start doing like a monthly chat because I think, there's a lot of information out there that's really kind of top level and really helpful. But I think now that we've all got some time with EveryStem like under our belts, and we've got a lot of members who have been using it for some time now, that I think kind of showing y'all some ways that I use it that really help me maximize my profitability and that really kind of give me the opportunity to not, make more money on each event that I'm doing. So, every weekend or every Saturday is like prime time, like we can only do so many events on a given Saturday. But, what we can do is maximize the profit on those events. So we can't just keep taking on more and more and more and increasing our revenue. But what we can do is choose events that we know are going to be good for us. Hopefully we're kind of vetting our clients ahead of time, and we're finding people who are willing to pay what we need to charge so that we can price on the front end for a healthy profit. And then on the back end, use EveryStem so that we can really maximize our profitability. So those are some of the things I want to talk about today. We've got the new consolidation feature, which is going to be kind of a piece of this that we just launched at the end of 2022. And I just want to tell you guys about it, share some tips about how I look at some of these things, and then we can kind of talk a little bit about if anybody has any questions or things that are going on. So if you have any questions, you could pop them in the chat or just turn on your audio and feel free to jump in if you have a question as we're going. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, and hopefully this will work. Let me switch over to my app. So I've got EveryStem up here. Okay. And then I'll share. All right. And I know most of you guys that are on here are more concentrated on wedding floristry. So this is something you could use for retail or weddings, but I think it works really nicely with events and weddings. So I did create a few event examples. So we'll start with those. So what I want to talk about today is pricing to maximize your profits on multiple event weekends. So pretty much all of us have at least a few weeks a year. Some of us have lots of weeks every year where we've got, multiple events happening. We've got something on a Wednesday, a corporate event. We've got a party on a Friday. We've got a wedding on a Saturday. And we're thinking about trying to figure out the best way to kind of maximize the profit across all of those events. And so there's a couple of reasons why I think this is really important. I took some notes here and I'm going to just look down at them as I go along because I didn't want to miss anything. But this is really important because it has a compound effect on your profits over time. So if we think about it in the case of a week, and we say, okay, we have 3 events this week. I'm just going to order for each one and it'll just be fine. And I'll just make some money on every event. That's great. But if we think about from the front end, our events each week and how we can really kind of try to come up with ways to use some of the same flower ingredients across those events, consolidate the orders in a smart way with a system like EveryStem, and maximize the profit on all of those events, it makes a huge difference, not only in the course of a week, but over the course of the whole year. So I want you guys to have really high profit margins this year. I want 2023 to be your best year of profitability yet. And so in order to do that, this is a way to really make that happen. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, you only have so many weekends in a year. So, as small business owners, people will say, oh, take on more, hire more people, do this, do that, grow your business. Not all of us necessarily want to do that, right? We want to keep our businesses small so that they're manageable. They're owner run. There's nothing wrong with being the owner of a business that runs that business, and not overwork ourselves. So if we're taking on, 12 weddings in a weekend and we have a small business, that might be more than we really want to take on. So we're increasing our revenue in that case, but maybe we're not actually increasing our profit margin because we're not working efficiently. We don't want to be burned out. So this is a great way to kind of keep your revenue the same, or maybe increase it a little bit as you're growing, but increase the profit on every one of those sales that you make. And then I want to tell you a little story about when I first started my flower shop in 2006. I bought it from a previous owner. And one of the most amazing things about the flower shop that I bought and owned for 12 years is that I had a wholesaler literally within walking distance of my flower shop. And it was like an amazing, wonderful thing, because for all my retail sales and my day-to-day orders, for picking up my wedding orders, for trading out substitute flowers, we literally would walk up and down the street. It was about a block and a half. So that proximity to the wholesaler was wonderful. And I became really friendly with a lot of the people that worked there. And one of the guys that worked there was an older gentleman named Gaynor, and he was wonderful. He was a great mentor because he used to own his own flower shop. And he kind of did old school stuff, and he had a flower shop for many years, and then he sold it and got into wholesale. But one of the things he first told me when I started my business was, don't be afraid to reuse, repurpose, or take advantage of product discounts when you can get them. So I would have a party on a Thursday for, say, the University of Texas, and maybe we used those flowers for like 2 hours. We delivered them at 11 a.m. and we picked them up at 2 p.m. And if I used lemon leaf and I used some really hardy flowers, I could repurpose those in some other event or some other thing later on. And so that was like pretty mind-blowing to me, because I always thought everything needed to be brand new, fresh, never touched before. So keep in mind, as we're going through this, thinking kind of outside of the box on ways that you can reuse product, reuse things like Smilax. We do that a lot here in Texas. You know, if you're using it on a Saturday, you know, is it cheaper to pay your 2 pickup people $50 to kind of pack it back up, put it back in the cooler and reuse it on Sunday? Or do you want to buy a whole new box of $150 to $250 Smilax? So these are things that you can think about and kind of start getting creative with planning ahead to make more profit with each event that you do. And I think that, you know, saving on bulk was one of the things that he really hit me with. And so that's why I wanted to talk about this today, how to maximize your profits on event weekends by kind of combining the events, combining the ingredients, and then finding the best price possible. So here's an example that I started with. This is a party that I just put together as an example, and we're going to take a look at it. So I started out with just 5 low centerpieces at $350 each, 5 tall centerpieces at $500 each, an entry arrangement, and a staircase installation that was pretty expensive, $22.50. And I have an inspiration image that I pulled up from one of my favorite books, the Flower Color Theory book by Putnam and Putnam is so good. And so this is like a really pretty image of coral, peach, ivory, kind of like softer tones that I wanted to use for this party that the client kind of was really into. So once I've got that kind of inspiration and I've got my recipes kind of sorted out, the next time somebody comes in to inquire about an event, I want to think about how I can look at the week that I already have, what I'm selling to the clients that are coming in for events that week, and how I can kind of maximize the ingredients for multiple events. So this wedding had, you know, heliconia in light oranges, or this party. It had some spray roses, it had rice flower, ranunculus, some peachy sweet peas. So the next event that pops up for me on that calendar, I could take a look at that week, see what I've already got booked, and then I can create a new event for my new client that's interested. So I had the UT, University of Texas, came to me and said, Luann, we want to have our Hall of Fame luncheon that same week. So I went through that same book and I took a look at some of the pictures, and I found oh, this is the wrong picture. Something similar, different picture, oranges, a little bit of the light oranges, some peaches, some greens. So taking a little bit of this color palette that you see here and kind of darkening it for the UT color palette, which is lots of oranges, and then adding some greens. So when I did that, I went ahead and used some of the same ingredients, the light orange spray roses, the light peach ranunculus, some heliconia, and then I added some greenery and some Dusty Miller so that I could use that across the board. So thinking about when a client comes in and inquires with you, what do I already have booked that week? And even if the color palettes vary really widely, think about what greenery can I use that would work for both of these events? What types of, base flowers could I use, neutral tones? So if you have one really bright event with lots of color and lots of vibrancy, and then you have one that's more neutrals, can you pull in a few pops of those neutrals into that bright palette so that you can combine and really maximize using some of those same ingredients? Because when we start looking at some of these ingredients, we can see, if I look on my price list, that from Flora Abundance, I've got a few of these flowers, like the rice flower. If I buy more than 5 bunches, I'm going to get $1 off each bunch. Same with my Dusty Miller and my sweet peas. They're actually $2 less if I buy 5 bunches. So if I start looking at some of this bulk pricing when it gets closer to placing my order, then I can really start to maximize what I'm doing because I'm getting some volume, and I can do that by doing multiple orders. So if we take a look back at the first one, I've got my party here. And I've got a profit margin of 80%, which is great. I'm using a 4 times markup, and I'm also using a 30% labor fee. So this has got a great profit margin. It's going to take a lot of labor for me to get these designs in and for me to install this really beautiful staircase installation. So I'm making sure that I'm charging enough for my labor, and I'm doing a high enough markup to make sure that I'm covering all my expenses. And so when I take a look at that with my full pricing, without the bulk pricing that I'm going to get as a discount, I'm making an 80% profit margin, and I'm making $5,800 in profit on the flowers. Now, when I go back and look at the one that I'm going to do with bulk pricing, now I can say, okay, I've charged my client, I've set my prices, and I've set my recipes. Now, if I go back in and adjust the Dusty Miller down from 85 cents, now it's 75 cents. I think there was the ranunculus went from 290 down to 210. The spray roses went from, or the spray roses stayed the same. The sweet pea went from 265 a stem is the bulk price. They were $2.80 a stem. So by adjusting these prices and not adjusting the recipe, because I'm doing the work to get this discounted price, so I should reap the reward of the additional profit that I'm making here. My client is still going to be extremely happy with the recipes that I've created, and I've already charged them this price. They've already agreed to pay the price that I've charged. So now if I take a look at the recipes adjusted for this bulk pricing, I can see that my profit margin has gone up by 2%, and my profit on flowers for this event went up by $105 just by changing the pricing, because I'm ordering more than 5 bunches on each of these flowers, because I'm consolidating multiple events together. So it's great, because if I can use some of these same flowers and talk to my wholesalers and say, where can I get the best price possible, I'm going to be able to increase my profit margin. That is not a requirement for me to go and then increase the flowers in my recipe. That's an opportunity for me to make an additional profit. So I think that's, something that we can really do to just raise the profit margin on our events by 2 or 3 percentage points. And if you do that for every event over the course of, 52 weeks of the year, you're going to see a pretty drastic increase. And then I went ahead and looked at the second event that I did. And so same thing with this UT party that's on the same weekend. I had a profit margin of 77%, which was pretty great. I did not charge as much for labor on this one, because for this one, I just drop off the flowers. I charged a 10% labor fee here. I just drop off the flowers and the team at the school sets them up on the tables. There was no installations required. So this is going to be a little bit lower profit margin than my other event, but for the fact that I'm not doing as much labor, I'm fine with that. It's still a really high 77% profit margin. Now, this is with the 85 cents for my Dusty Miller and the higher prices for my other flowers. My seeded eucalyptus and my true blue were $9.50 each. Let's take a look when I do the bulk pricing, and I can actually lower the prices on my greenery to $8.50 a bunch. And I can lower some of my other flowers a bit. I think the ranunculus went down too. Now I'm making an 80% profit margin. So the profit margin on this event, just by adjusting to the bulk pricing, went up 3 points, which is awesome. And then the profit on this one actually went up by $261. So taking this and then taking it a step further is going to be consolidating these orders together. So we've got this consolidated export button, which is brand new on the dashboard. This is where you can consolidate these 2 events into one big flower order. So if we take our party and our luncheon event and we click consolidated export, it's going to combine these. And so what it's going to do is really minimize these extras. So for example, I know for a fact with my spray roses that I was going to order 110 stems for my party, and I was going to order 270 for my UT event. So because I had extras on each event, combining that is now making those extras down to 0. And I'm only ordering 360 stems. So that's 36 bunches. That's going to take another $21 off of my cost for this week worth of events. So that means I'm now saving another $21 and adding that to my profit. And I know you guys already know, but EveryStem's like $24.99 a month. So that one item is going to actually almost pay for your month worth of EveryStem, and that's just costing out 2 events. So these are some of the things that I think that you guys could definitely think about as you're going forward, and kind of consider the fact that just because you get a better price on a certain flower does not mean you need to add more flowers to that flower recipe. So I think that's a really key point that I want to drive home, because I know a lot of us just feel like we have to keep giving and giving and giving. So when you can look at a bulk price in a particular event, and you could say, okay, I typically pay $8.50 a bunch for the Dusty Miller, but because I'm buying more than 5 bunches, I can get it for $7.50, so 75 cents a stem. I'm raising my profit margin on this by 2 points just by going through and adjusting that pricing so that I know I'm getting the bulk price when I'm ordering more than 5 or 10 bunches. So I know everybody buys from different wholesalers, but I highly recommend that if you are working with wholesalers, that you get close to them, you get friendly with your rep, and that you let them know, you know, this other wholesaler is going to give me a better price. What's the best price you can possibly give me? Asking that question can really save a lot of money. And if you guys don't have time to kind of do that, that's a great role for an assistant, an administrative assistant, or a virtual assistant to come in and help look through your wholesale options and really come back right before you place your orders and finalize some of this pricing so that you can get the best price possible. If I can increase my profit margin by 3% for every wedding that I do, and I can increase my profit between that one event we looked at was $105 and this one was $261. If I can increase my profit in dollars on every event by, you know, somewhere around $150, that's huge. And this system makes it really easy for you guys to be able to do that. You can just come right in, make a copy. So I'll show you what I did here. I took my my Ringo's party event. I finalized my order, you know, kind of thinking about what I wanted on the front end when I did my proposal, and they booked with me. Then when it was time for me to finalize the order, I made a copy of it. And that's when you can change the name, you can add, you know, final. So here I added final bulk pricing so that I know they're two different events. And then when I go ahead and open this one up, that's where I can come in and adjust my prices. So the sweet peas were $2.80 a stem. Now, because I'm doing this bulk pricing, they're $2.65 a stem. So when I change the price right here, it adjusts all of my recipes with that lower price. So you can see that I have a pretty significant difference on each of these columns because I am using that lower price. That does not mean I need to increase my recipe. So if you feel comfortable that your recipe is going to satisfy your client and that they're going to get the full perceived value, accept that that is more profit in your pocket and fight the urge to try to keep filling and filling and filling the recipe. Now, if it's a recipe that's really tight and you need to kind of think about raising the price in the future, keep that in mind. But, you know, there's no reason why we can't have a nice profit because we're buying in bulk and then taking it to that next step by going ahead and consolidating these using that consolidated export feature. So you just click on both of these checkboxes, you combine them together, and then it is going to give you all of the pages of your events, and then it's going to combine them and maximize that order. And it'll give you a summary so you can order that way. So it's really helpful to be able to do that. And I know it's not a super elaborate thing, but I think it makes sense. And a lot of us kind of tend to say, okay, Valentine's Day is coming up. I'm going to price out all of my Valentine's Day arrangements based on, you know, the pricing that my wholesaler gives me. So I know last year I was freelancing for one of my friends for Valentine's Day, and she had garden rose prices at $4.90 a stem. And that was from our local wholesaler, Austin Flower Company. They're great. The product is wonderful. But then we saw right before she placed the order that in San Antonio, Choice Flowers was doing this amazing garden rose deal, and they were like $2.80 a stem. And so she went ahead and ordered them from them, and she kept her recipes and her pricing for those arrangements with the garden roses in them at full price. And so she was able to make a significant amount more on each of those designs. That does not mean she needs to overfill that arrangement. As long as that client is happy, you can take advantage of, you know, using those price discounts. You know, if we were a clothing company and we could get our fabric for a cheaper price, would we then go and discount the shirt? No, we would charge, you know, like Athleta is not discounting their shirts when their supplier gives them a better price on, you know, bulk fabric. So just keep that in mind as you're moving forward through 2023. And, you know, let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to help. And I hope that you guys will take advantage of this new feature with the consolidated orders. And then I'll open it up to questions. Does anybody have any questions about this or about anything else? Kind of orders that are coming up or inquiries that you're doing, proposals? Gina, how are you doing? Do you have any questions about anything? Let me check the chat too and see if anybody asked any questions I didn't see. I'm going to stop sharing this real quick and just see. I don't think we have any questions in there. Okay. Danielle, what do you think about that? Does it make sense? Does it?
It does make sense. I'm kind of in a position where I only really take on one-ish weddings a weekend anyway, but I do like the concept and yeah, curious to use it when I do have more weddings come up, but it's hard sometimes because most weddings are different. I think like, you know, different colors. But if you had the same kind of theme going on, then yes, it would be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, even when we have like some really big variations, like when I freelance for some of the florists here in Austin, they have, 4 or 5 weddings in a weekend, which is a lot. But there's always like quicksand roses, and there's always, some kind of eucalyptus, or, some kind of flat fern, or, so keep that in mind, even as you're, thinking about, stuff like that. Or if you have an event like earlier in the week, or something even 2 weeks in a row, like if you have a really good cooler and you could get a special on lemon leaf, and you can buy it for the first Saturday of the month, and then you can use that same greenery in the second weekend, you could do it that way too. So you could definitely maximize. And then same with when you're thinking about the bulk pricing, even if you're just doing like one weekend, one event each weekend, you could definitely,
Just get this.
Yes.
you can definitely think about that bulk pricing, and just talk to your wholesalers and say, what's the best price you can give me on this? I'm ordering, 500 hydrangeas this week. Can you give me a better price than what's listed on this price sheet? And just hit them up for a slightly better price. And if you can do that, worst thing they could say is no, right? I mean, so it can't hurt to ask. And I think some of those things can be really, those little bits of profit increase can really add up. So I think that's like a huge deal that we kind of tend to forget about. It's like that that 1% incremental increase, being 1% better at something, every month, every week, can really impact the course of an entire year. So I think that's a big factor in, taking advantage of that. And I'm not sure in Australia how the wholesalers are. Do they kind of work with you on pricing, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, the ones where you sort of buy from more often look after you. Yeah. It's a bit of a bartering system sometimes, but these days it's sort of like the price is the price, just because of, I don't know, everything that's going on in the world. There's been a lot of like flooding and fires and stuff like that. So they've kind of been sticking to their prices. And they've increased astronomically as well. But it's just, it's getting better. It's kind of like getting back to normal, I think. So I'm curious to see what 2023 looks like, and if we sort of
level out a little bit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have had, and I mean, for you, I know you guys have a lot of certain types of flowers that grow there, but then you have to import a lot of things that.
Yeah, we do. There's also a huge movement in Australia at the moment with like not using imported flowers and sort of a more sustainable approach. And it's very tricky. There's a lot, as you said earlier, there is a lot of information and education and, business coaches and everything going on at the moment. And it's a wild world to navigate. I think you just got to be, I use imports. I love quicksands and Playa Blancas and toffees, and my clients ask for that. I am all about sustainability. Like, actually, that's probably I do my bit to kind of, but I don't even know where I was going with that, but
I feel you though. I totally get that, Danielle, because I just posted something on Instagram the other day. It was about using that agro wool. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's like a foam. And so, man, that post got 1 million responses, because not 1 million, like, tens and tens of views. I'm like not high on the Instagram totem pole, but it definitely got a lot of response, because I think, one of the lines I said that somebody kind of wrote back to me was, we want to run sustainable businesses in an industry that frankly is not very sustainable. And it's hard, our clients want these beautiful flowers, we want to have them, last and look beautiful in these climates that, like, I know probably where you are, we're definitely where I am. It's 110 degrees on a May wedding day, and we're trying to keep these flowers alive, and we have to do everything we can to, make the client happy, number one priority. Then sustainability comes into play. And I think there is a lot of that, like, I don't think anyone wants to feel guilty about running their business and not being as sustainable as they quote unquote should be. I think we're all trying our best. So it's just, I totally get that. Like, I love trying to use local flowers here, but Texas is not, we're growing, we're getting more farmer florists, and we're getting more flower farms. But when I had my flower shop, there was literally one flower farm in like the entire central Texas area. And, you would say to the client, hey, do you want to go ahead and do, all local flowers? Oh, yes, that's my dream, to do all local flowers. And then when you tell them, well, you have to just use whatever I give you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Then it changes. They're like, oh, no, never mind. I don't want to do local flowers anymore.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think if you do your part in other areas, like purchasing imports is still supporting the floral industry. It's someone's business overseas. Like, we are supporting human beings to do what they do to create a living. And if Australia didn't continue to import, that would really affect that overseas business. So it's just, and the whole foam thing, like if someone's spending $10,000 on their flowers and you don't water vial up your flowers correctly and they're wilted by the end of the ceremony, like they're going to want to, it's a very sort of tricky world to navigate. So
it really is. Yeah.
Use it smart and sparingly, and reuse your cages and stuff. Use vases and water vials where you can, but don't feel guilty if your ceremony has foam in it, because you have to keep it alive. Like, it's just reality.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's, I used to do, for all my dailies and my retail, and the majority of my weddings were all, water, and based. But when there are some things that are, just really hard to do without, if we could suspend water in air, like on the side of a building, it would be amazing, So I totally get that. But I think just kind of trying to keep those things in mind as far as, making sure you're costing out all that stuff, adding it to your recipes in EveryStem. And then, thinking about any time you can get a little bit of a price break from one of your wholesalers, send them that price list. You can export that from EveryStem before you place the flower order, send that list over to them and say, what's the best price you can give me on all of these flowers? And, maybe they can give you a little bit of a price break on a few flowers. And if we can get our profit margins up by, just 2 or 3 percentage points on, even if it's on half of the weddings, it's going to make a big difference over the course of the whole year. So I think that's a big piece. And kind of pricing everything out on the front end, I think, helps too. So it's like a big factor in that. Anybody else have any questions? I know Gina said, can I consolidate my orders when I do retail and events at the same time? Yes, absolutely. So the consolidation feature, you can create a retail event. So if you have a weekly flower order, that's an event. And then you have a wedding that's an event, and a baby shower that's an event, and all those 3 are happening in the same week. You can just click the checkbox next to each of those events and consolidate, and it will consolidate all those orders together into one giant flower order for you. So I think that's going to be a really cool feature. A lot of our members who have larger flower shops and studios that are doing, 8 or 10 weddings a weekend, really wanted that. And I could see why. I think it'll help in a lot of ways, just to kind of, when you have that many weddings to consolidate down. So yeah, if anybody else has any questions, let me know. But that was pretty much it. I know it's kind of a shorter chat this week, so if anybody has anything, but I think that was just kind of like a key point to getting started in the new year. And just kind of thinking about those things. I know it takes some time to send that list over to the wholesalers, getting that response back. So we talked recently about, hiring a virtual assistant or having somebody who's helping you with some of that stuff. And if you guys want to look back at the chat that I had with Rachel of the Botanic Business Hub, she is a virtual assistant based in the UK. And we had an amazing Instagram live chat. I think it was last week. And it's on I guess if you go on my reels, I think it'll show up on there. It's like a picture of the two of us. But we talked about how we can use virtual assistants to really help, kind of just prep things with proposals, with EveryStem orders, all that kind of stuff. If you find the right assistant, it can go a long way. And I know a few assistants here in the US and a couple in the UK. So if anybody's interested, I don't know of any in Australia, but I need to find a few. I know, maybe I'll ask Kathleen if she knows of any. So that way we have some people to recommend to you guys if you need some support. All right. Well, I guess everybody is good. So I hope y'all have a happy start to the new year. And I hope you guys will join me next month. And on the 18th of January, I'm doing a call with Kathleen of Little Bird Bloom. I'm a guest speaker on her group that's called the Flower Boss Academy. So if you guys are interested, it's going to be a really great talk. We're going to be talking about how we think about making money. And I know Danielle, Kathleen. For those of you who don't know Kathleen, she's a great coach. She's her Instagram is at Little Bird Bloom, I believe. And she has some really great helpful tips. And we're going to be having a great conversation. I love bouncing ideas back and forth with her because we have very similar mindsets on business and making money. So that'll be on the 18th of January. The link is on the homepage of EveryStem. And then for anybody who's doing Valentine's Day, if you guys are interested, on the 14th, which is this Saturday, Althea Wills and I are going to be doing a chat about a Valentine's Day prep. So if you're interested in that, you have to go to her website and register. But she talks all about how to organize your shop, how to prepare your orders. I'm going to talk a little bit about ordering flowers and how there's a couple different ways you can do that. And that link to register is also on the homepage of the EveryStem app once you log into the software. So those will be a couple calls coming up in January. And then in February, I'll reach out and let you guys know what we're going to chat about. One of the things I'm thinking about is how we can really start to pay ourselves, because a lot of people have reached out to me recently asking, how do I pay myself? Like, I'm doing this business and I'm kind of starting to make money, but I'm not really regularly paying myself. All my money is going back into reinvesting in the business. So that might be our topic. But if you guys think of anything that you want to talk about, then, Katura says, yes, please do that chat. Okay, so that's great. I think it's really important to make sure that we are paying ourselves and a regular paycheck. And then on top of that, we're taking distributions out of our business on the additional profit. So I'll give you some ideas on that, how I did that when I had my business. So that'll probably be our February chat, and I'll send that out to you guys. I think we'll do that after Valentine's Day. So that way we're not kind of competing with getting ready for Valentine's Day there. All right, guys, I hope y'all have a great day, and thank you so much. And if y'all need anything, you know where I am. Just holler at me.